last time, in the previous video, where we looked at where demand curves might come from, and now we want to talk a bit more about demand curves. So I'm going to say more on demand curves, and remember where we are with the demand curves, just because it's our first real graph in a course that spends a lot of time doing graphs. We have price, we have quantity, and then we have some linear form that is downward sloping, and this is our demand curve, and that demand curve is essentially just a function that says output is some function f of price. Okay, linear for us right now. And I want to introduce a little jargon here, and the jargon says we're going to use the phrase change in demand to refer to shifts in the demand curve. Okay, we're going to use the phrase changes in demand to refer to shifts in the demand curve. We're going to use the phrase change in quantity demanded to refer to movements along a static demand curve. Okay, so let's think about what that really means, right? You're going to have you have a record of this now, so you can go back and look at this on the video and read it and think about it, or write it down on your own notes. But I'm going to draw you a graph here to think about it. Okay. And so in our graph, we'll have on the vertical axis, we're going to put price, and on the horizontal axis, we're going to put quantity. Okay, and we have some demand curve to begin with. And we'll call this demand curve D0. And what we decided from this previous one is that we would say the phrase change in demand to refer to shifts in the demand curve. So suppose this is the demand curve for this product, okay? And now something comes along and changes how consumers view this product. The government, suppose this is the quantity of tomatoes. And suppose the government releases a new study that said consumption of more tomatoes significantly reduces the probability of heart disease. Okay, now that's possible. Okay, people are making studies like this all the time. Suppose they make that announcement. Well, what that means is that now, in the old days, if price, I don't know why that was red. In the old days, if price was P0, consumers wanted to buy Q0. But now, if price is P0, people want to buy more than they used to. Why? Because it's now a different product in their mind. They're still tomatoes. They still got tomato farms and they're producing and all these sort of things. But consumers value the product today differently than they did yesterday. At any quoted price, consumers want more today than they did yesterday. At any quoted price, consumers want more today than they did yesterday. And so what that means for us is that the demand curve has shifted out. Okay, so the demand curve has shifted to the right. Okay, at any quoted price, people want more than they did before. Now, our jargon for this is to say that's an increase in demand. It's a change in demand. Okay, so a shift in the curve. Let's go back to our previous page. A shift, we call it, this is what I wanted. We call it a change in demand when we have a shift in the demand curve, okay? The whole curve itself moves. Alternatively, let's draw another graph. So I need a new sheet of paper. And on here, I put price and quantity just like before. And I'm going to draw a demand curve, which I arbitrarily picked to be here because I've got the pen. It's linear. And this is the original demand curve. And here's our original equilibrium. And now something comes along to change the price. I don't know what caused the price to go up. Maybe the government put a tax on this product. Maybe the government says, I'm going to tax this product, and they put that tax and the prices go up. Whatever it is, if the price goes up from P0 to P1, consumers are going to go from Q0 to Q1. This difference, to us in terms of jargon, is a movement along a curve. Okay, it's a movement along a static curve, so we call that a change in quantity demanded. The movement from alpha to beta, which we'll accentuate here by drawing a red line on here. The movement from alpha to beta is a movement along a static curve, okay? And that we would say as a decrease in quantity demanded. Quantity demanded drops from Q0 to Q1 along the curve. Now you might say, Larry, why are you doing this to us? Why do we have to think about all these obscure little changes in words, demand versus quantity demand? Well, it's really important. See, if I ask you a question on an exam and it says, suppose this is happening, right? Suppose that the government, across the country, many states are contemplating increasing gasoline tax. Why? Because it turns out our infrastructure is pretty bad. Every state in the country, every state in the union has bridges that are falling apart and roads that have potholes and all of these things. And so they're thinking about raising the tax. So if they suppose I told you to model for me what would happen if they raised the tax of gasoline. You say, well, I know what happens, Larry. That's going to make gasoline more expensive. And that means that there's going to be a drop in demand. And of course you would be wrong. If gasoline went up, that's just like this. If the price of gasoline went up, it would be a movement along a static demand curve. There was nothing that changed the underlying quality of the gasoline. This curve that you've built, okay, this curve gathers all the information about how much people will pay and how much people will want to buy at different possible prices. So if they roll up to the pump and the price is higher than it was before, they don't buy as much gas. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time thinking about the gasoline demand curve, and it turns out the gasoline demand curve is downward sloping, but it turns out it is really steep. It's really steep. When the price of gasoline goes up, people cuss and swear, but they still fill their car up because they got to get to work, they got to take the kids to soccer practice, all these sorts of things. So there is some cutback. There'll be some carpooling. Okay, there'll be some switching to their bicycle to go to the corner store instead of driving the car 2 blocks down to get some milk, but not very much. Okay, this movement along is because this price went up. The curve itself didn't shift. The curve represents people's willingness to pay, or willingness to purchase at different possible prices. Okay.